Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to another Walking Dead video. So in this video here, I want to actually answer a bunch of questions that you guys do have regarding the finale and regarding that ending scene and whatnot there. I actually do have quite a bit of videos planned throughout the next couple of days, really focused on sort of the future of what's going on. I do still want to talk about that Rick Grimes scene because honestly, watching it over and over again, there's a lot of stuff there. There's actually a behind the scenes thing that actually focuses a lot on what Andy and Denai were sort of thinking going into filming that and whatnot. So I want to actually talk about that a little bit. And there's a lot of interesting things out there. You know, Gimple has sort of teased the possibility of more spin-offs. There's still some talk of Tales of the Walking Dead and potentially doing a season 2. And actually what I really like about what Scott Gimple said was apparently that Tales of the Walking Dead was originally supposed to have like older characters on that show, right? Like there was supposed to be a lot more older characters, and yeah, that was supposed to be more of a focus. I'm not entirely sure what happened and why Tales of the Walking Dead focused on a lot more original characters, but there was supposed to be a lot more of those older characters coming onto the show, and I'm guessing like the governor and etc. and stuff. So, you know, if we do eventually get a season 2, cool. It does look like Dead City is going to be getting renewed for a season 2 very soon, but I don't know when they're going to be announcing it, but it does seem like it is going to be happening. So anyways, before we go any further, make sure to be a subscriber if you do want to get all my Walking Dead content like this. But let's actually get into the Q&A here. So what did the guy talking to Rick mean by consigning Grimes, and do you think someone drove the boat to Bloodsworth Island? Well, I think consignee Grimes, like if you just look up what consignee means, I'm pretty sure it actually means something about like a mail delivery or it's something like that. And I think, you know, the reference here is more that Rick Grimes was sort of delivered to the Civic Republic by Jadis, right? And so I'm just kind of assuming that's what they're saying here, is they're just sort of, you know, they're teasing Rick Grimes there basically. And the second part of your question, do you think someone drove the boat to Bloodsworth Island? Yeah, I have a lot of questions about that because I thought he was actually in the area, and I do have a video actually coming out talking more about the scene and whatnot because it's actually, he's not anywhere near Bloodsworth Island. He's actually, I'm pretty sure he's actually in New Jersey. I'm pretty sure Rick is actually, at least from what people were saying, you know, he's on that certain side of the river where he would technically be in New Jersey, but he's facing Philadelphia. I have to do so much more research on that. I have no idea at all. I don't know the geography of the area at all. But, you know, it does confirm, though, for sure that Rick has been held in Philadelphia this entire time. And when considering the fact that Maggie and Negan, you know, are going to be going to New York, first they're going to be in New Jersey, I'm pretty sure. At least I think so in the first episode, then I think after they're going to be in New York. So I mentioned that in previous videos. Someone was like, no, they're going to be in New York. Like, I know that. My point is they're all super close to each other, right? Like Rick, Maggie, Negan. I mean, it depends. Michonne probably would be pretty close as well, right? They could all literally be in that same area. I mean, it depends on the timeline and all that, right? Daryl is in France, so that, you know, for him, that definitely really sucks. But I do wonder how much he's going to know. I do wonder how much, you know, he's going to know about just what he's found. Has he learned a lot more about the Civic Republic? The one thing that we don't know about the spinoffs is, you know, when they're going to be taking place. Because I've seen some people sort of theorize that it might take place years later and stuff like that. I don't really know about that. It could take place some time later, but I don't know how far they want to go forward into the future, right? So it really depends. It really depends. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I do think obviously they're all sort of connecting here with the Civic Republic storyline, right? Now that we know that there wasn't any hint as to why Maggie and Negan go to New York, do you think we will see Alexandria/Hilltop again before they head over there in the first episode of Dead City? Or will the show just start with them in New York and show a flashback or something of how they ended up there and explain it like that? Well, I'm pretty sure they're going to show them traveling over there. In terms of, you know, the stuff with Alexandria and all that, yeah, that's kind of hard to say. I don't know if we're going to see Alexandria. I don't know how much they're going to give us there. We might see them leave the Commonwealth because you got to remember, like, they're a part of the Commonwealth now, right? Some people live in Alexandria. Some people live at the Hilltop. Definitely, like, they have the resources from the Commonwealth, but not everyone entirely, right? So it's just one of those things that I guess they would just be leaving one of those communities. If anything, I would see Maggie just leaving the Hilltop, right? That seems to be kind of what it is. So I can see them leaving the Hilltop or something like that. Maybe we'll see something like that because it's pretty easy to do that, right? I mean, you might have to do some CGI stuff, obviously, if the set's not up anymore, but it depends on how they plan to do certain things, right? Because, like, I always think, well, you know, the whole set's down, they're not going to do that or whatever. Well, it seems like they will rebuild stuff stuff here and there, and they will literally just like rebuild a certain section because maybe that's all they got to see of the whole place. Q&A, other than it being Rick, why do you think they didn't just kill Rick? I mean, yeah, I guess that's a good question, right? Because if that was just like any ordinary person, would the CRM have just killed that person on the spot? It really does depend, I think, on just, the importance of Rick Grimes and how much he does contribute to the overall story here. I mean, it seems like they really know him well, right? We've seen the CRM interact with other people, and I don't even know if they knew their name, right? Like, in this case here, they just knew Rick immediately, right? Like, they seem to have dealt with him quite a bit. There's something more significant with Rick in all of this here. So it's interesting. I'll just say that. Like it is interesting as to, his importance within all of this here, if they do really like him. I mean, honestly, I could see it from the CRM's point of view. You look at somebody like Rick Grimes and just who he is as a person, yeah, you're going to want him on your side. So I think that's sort of the overall goal here. Like, if you just killed him, then like he wouldn't really, there's no value there, right? But if you can somehow make him join your side, then I think the CRM would be pretty happy with that, right? So I think that's why he's sort of given the benefit of the doubt. But we'll see in the actual show, right? Because what we saw there was probably a year or 2 or 3 years or something after he first disappeared, right? It was only a couple years after he first disappeared. It's been several years since that moment, right? Several years since that big moment. So we'll have to wait and see what's actually happening there. Q&A, do you think Rick is in New York or somewhere else? No, Rick right now is in Philadelphia. I mean, I guess at the time he was in Philadelphia and he was taken there. And, I mean, yeah, I guess we'll have to wait and see where he is now. I'm assuming he's still there, though. Like, I don't think they're going to change that location too much. I do think he's still going to be there. How big of a role do you think this big group of people Michonne is with will play at all in the Rick and Michonne spinoff? Will they just kind of be there, and once Michonne and Rick find each other, Michonne just leaves them? Or will they serve a bigger purpose in this fight against the Civic Republic? Well, I mean, yeah, I know that the group is going to play a pretty big role in a lot of Michonne's story, right? It's a matter of, like, I guess once you get towards the end game, because Gimple did talk about that. Like, there's a big story there with why Michonne has her armor, right? Like that outfit that she has. There's a story there. And, in terms of the group that she's with, there's a big mystery there because we saw that group, in our last episode on The Walking Dead. And so now it's just one of those things that it's like, yeah, I don't know. They could play a pretty big role. I imagine they will early on. I mean, that's the thing, right? I think Michonne is going to rescue Rick. Like, I think that's the whole thing with the Civic Republic story here, is I think they're really going to introduce the threat of all of this. We're going to learn a bunch of new characters, this and that. I think by the end, Michonne's going to rescue Rick. It'll probably be like Michonne rescues Rick, but Rick also, escapes, because I think they're going to want to give that to both of them, right? Although I would argue, I would really like it if Michonne was the one to save him, because it almost seems literally impossible right now for Rick to escape. He hasn't been back in years. Like, it's literally impossible for him to get out. So, for Michonne to play a role in that, to actually help him get out, it helps build up the threat of the CRM that much more, right? Like, once they have you, you can literally never, ever escape. So, yeah, I would like it actually if Michonne was the one to actually rescue Rick. And then, yeah, at that point, we'll have to see what happens next. Like, that's the thing. That's why I kind of know, based off of all of this here, that Rick Grimes and Michonne Grimes' story is really far from over. Just because once they reunite, that's going to be fun and exciting. But is Rick really just going to leave the Civic Republic alone? Right? Like, is he actually just totally going to leave the Civic Republic alone and just be like, yeah, it doesn't really matter. I'm just going to go back home to the Commonwealth or Alexandria. Like, I just don't see that really being the case. That just seems really insane for him to just literally let everything go back to Alexandria while Daryl's in France, even if he does come back. And even if Maggie and Negan are dealing with stuff in New York, like there's stuff that needs to be dealt with, basically, right? And a lot of his friends and family are in trouble. So that's kind of why I think the Civic Republic here, like this plot will be the end of it, because it's sort of the big bad of the Walking Dead universe right now. And yeah, Q&A, some people are saying the finale felt rushed. What are your thoughts on the pacing personally? Well, I actually didn't mind the pacing overall. I do think the Commonwealth arc was a little rushed, though, or the Commonwealth part during the middle of the episode where, basically it really seemed like, first of all, I think early on everything worked out really well, but it just seemed like once they got to the estates, once, it seemed like, okay, those walkers are approaching those people by that gate, Daryl just walked out there and just told Pamela Milton to open up those gates, just said a little speech or whatever, said, "We ain't the Walking Dead," and just like walked up, opened it up, and everyone just sided with our characters. Like, it was really, really fast. I think that it was definitely, I think it could have been a lot longer. There was so much more there, but I understand why they trimmed it down, definitely, considering everything that we got after that moment. It's definitely worth it. This episode was literally one of the best episodes I've ever watched of anything Walking Dead related, right? Like anything in the Walking Dead universe, this episode honestly is definitely up there. It could be the best. It's definitely top 5 for sure. Top 3, top 5. It is really like it's up there. And so, but I still do have some complaints a little bit. Like there's still some issues there. So if I had to, pick one moment that I didn't really like, it was definitely that. Overall, I think the pacing was still really well done. Like that's the thing. Like you can say it felt rushed overall, but I think the pacing of what they did and what they gave us at the end, it worked really well, and I can see why they did it. Q&A, what do you think the certain alliances or designation 2 was in reference to, since the CRM never made any sort of appearance at the Commonwealth? Yeah, that part there is super frustrating. Like, I do still believe that it was a CRM reference. I really do. Gimple likes to do that a lot. Like Gimple will introduce these ideas and stuff on the show that gets people very excited and you wonder what it means. If you remember, there is that card, right? Like the triple P card. Like people have been wondering, like, what does that mean? And we still don't know to this day. There was a lot of stuff with the CRM logo as well. Remember, if you go back to season 7, I believe, there was, or season 7 or season 8, I think it was season 8 maybe. It was around there anyways. We were wondering for so long what that meant, and then eventually we learned, right? Like it took some time to actually know that. But in terms of that, yeah, it definitely is pretty frustrating because I think that was something that you could have introduced on the show just so easily. Like you easily could have done it, but they just refused to do it. So I don't know. Do you think the announcement of all these spinoffs before the show concluded kind of ruined a lot of the suspense going into the final episodes, not knowing if one of our main characters will die? I guess it did. The thing is, though, is like, I think a lot of us already assumed that anyways. Like, honestly, if you just ignore the fact that, or just literally take away the announcements of the Daryl show and the Maggie and Negan show, we all knew that Rick and Michonne were getting a spinoff. So to us, it was just like, well, you're going to reunite some of those characters with Rick and Michonne one day, right? So to me, it was like, yeah, I guess it did ruin a little bit of the hype, or I guess not hype, but a little bit of the suspense, going into that final episode. But I just think that no matter what, people would have been talking about the fact that, like, well, are those characters going to reunite with Rick and Michonne? What's their plan? This and that. Like, there still would have been stuff coming out. I just think, yeah. Q&A, when do you think Rick tried to escape / when did that post-credit scene take place? My guess is it was within 3 years after his final episode on The Walking Dead. I don't know for sure at all. I have no idea. I'm just going to assume that it was within 3 years, because 6 years later, 6.5 years or something like that, because there was a time jump between season 9 and season 10, right? I think there was actually 2 time jumps. There's one between season 9, episode 15 and 16, and then there was another one between 16 and then season 10, episode 1. So I'm just assuming that, like, at that point, when Michonne found the boots and all of that, obviously I believe it was like several years at that point, because Michonne found the boots inside a boat, inside a room, and just like in a chest or something like that. So totally different situation, totally different place from where Rick threw it, right? Like Rick literally just threw it onto the boat. So something happened. My guess is it was within 3 years after. I think that's a pretty good guess. Q&A, do you think Major General Beale could be casted as Gus Fring? Oh, so you just mean like the actor who plays Gus Fring in Breaking Bad? Could he play Major General Beale? He could totally play that role. Honestly, that actor is amazing. I would love that. Honestly, I would really love that. I think it's almost perfect casting. So yeah, I think it's a strong possibility, but we'll have to wait and see. I mean, I guess a lot of that role and the announcement is something that we could look forward to over the next month, because that show is going to be filming in like a month and a half, right? So it's going to be interesting to see the casting and all of that. Like that stuff could get announced over the next month. Q&A, do you think Judith will eventually be in the Rick and Michonne spinoffs or any of the other spinoffs, to be fair? Well, I know they're not done with the character of Judith. I think Judith, if anything, is going to be in the Rick and Michonne spinoff. I just don't know what their overall plan is with the spinoffs. Like, I think with the spinoffs, like Gimple is actually saying, he wants to do other spinoffs with other characters and stuff like that, but his plan right now is to just get these shows up and just going, and then he can start to focus on some other things here. But it depends on their overall plan here. Like, the thing is with these character spinoffs is you have all these characters sort of, on their own, doing their own thing. Like, do you end the Daryl spinoff in a way that can transition him onto the Rick and Michonne show? How do you do it all? Like, that's sort of why I believe that in a way they're going to end the spinoffs and then almost do like a Walking Dead season 12 afterwards. Like, I'm not saying it's going to actually be that, but I'm just trying to figure out how they're planning to do this, because the end game needs to be Rick and Michonne come back home and reunite with Daryl, reunite with Maggie, right? And even Negan, I would say as well. You know, there's so much there. Like, there's a lot of stuff. So, but yeah, I'm gonna leave it here. Definitely post your thoughts down below. Hope you guys all enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.